covers the stuff all the time. The stories, man. I saw that this morning and I was like, what in the hell? Brian, man, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you joining me. Brian is a journalist, a writer. He New Atlas, where they do just fantastic work. And before I even knew who Brian was, I had videos of his saved because of rundowns that he did that I was like, wow, that's insightful. That's awesome. I am pleased to have you on the show, Brian. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you joining me. How you doing today? You doing all right?
I'm doing well. It's the evening here in Thailand where I'm based. Thank you so much for having me back.
Oh, dude, you are welcome back anytime. I love these conversations. These kind of big news often gives people individual snapshots that is disconnected from everything else. And so you look at it and you be like, you feel informed. And you're like, oh, I know about this thing. Missing the fact that there are larger connections that are effectively taking work that makes that what it is. They almost, I want to say misinform their audience because they leave that out, but maybe I don't want to do that anyway, right? I wouldn't have a job if they did it well. What do you think of that story? I mean, they are saying that within 3 days, Donald Trump is going to release his quote unquote peace plan. I ain't calling it cartoonish. It is ludicrous that he thinks that territory, meaning the notion that Trump says, you're going to get the 5 territories, no NATO for Ukraine. For one, how do you prove no NATO for Ukraine? How do you do that, right? When you have the director of NATO effectively saying, after a peace deal, we will have this, we will revisit this issue. Okay, again, killing any kind of deal. And then it's like, we're giving you the 5 regions that you have taken in blood, by the way, meaning we don't need you to give us anything. We already took this. This is part of the Russian Constitution. We're going to take the remainder of it. But then to be so ludicrous as to say, by the way, the nuclear power plant that is in Zaporozhye, we're going to take that. We'll take that off your hands. We'll help you out. Is this a deal designed to fail with Donald Trump realizing I can't get a deal? Meaning something in it was clicked. Europe is not going to be for it. They're not going to accept anything we propose. Russia is not going to accept anything we propose. We can't do anything on the ground. Zelensky, that lunatic, that little troll, is running around with Europe doing everything they can to kill the deal. It is impossible for me to get a deal under these terms. So I'm going to come up with a peace plan, and I'm going to say they're not working with me, and I'm going to walk, like Steve Bannon said, walk the F away. Is that what is happening right now? Because otherwise, he can't be this comically incompetent. Give me your thoughts.
Well, I hate to do this to people who follow my work because I've referenced this directive that U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth gave to Europe on February 12th this year, where he laid absolutely all of this out. There's going to be European troops going in on the ground to freeze the conflict. So it's a Syria style freeze. And then it's a Minsk III framework, which Russia has outright rejected and rejected the idea of freezing it until it could be, this all the hostilities could be instigated again at some point in the future. And Secretary Hegseth to Europe was saying, double down on arming Ukraine, double down on helping them reorganize their military, expand your military industrial base. We will expand our military industrial base. We need to go deal with China. You freeze this conflict with Russia, and then we can circle around back to it at a later. That's essentially what he was saying. And this was always the plan. This was the plan the U.S. used successfully, I might add, to overthrow the government in Syria. And now it is the plan that they have laid out and had in mind people who have been following this the last 3+ years now. We were warning that this was going to be the plan. When they failed winning this proxy war against Russia, they would do a Syria-style buffer zone in whatever was left of Ukraine. People have been saying this since 2022. And they would do a Minsk III. And now that's exactly what we have. That's what it is.
Do they believe that Russia doesn't have access to that information? Do they really believe that Russia, for one, after seeing Syria, after encountering Minsk I and II, after seeing Donald Trump pull out of pretty much every agreement that he got involved in, whether it was the one in Israel, whether it was, hell, even NAFTA, for God's sake, even the missile treaties under the first Trump administration, where John Bolton was involved because John Bolton doesn't believe in these type of treaties. He believes it limits U.S. capability, believing that the U.S. is the top dog. Does he really believe that they would be that naive to trust and accept any of this? Which is my point, right? This is why I come around to they can't be this stupid. But I think you're saying maybe they are.
Or maybe they want to appear to be pursuing diplomacy, which is a reoccurring theme throughout years and years of policy papers. They always talk about the necessity to appear to pursue diplomacy and make it appear as their adversaries are the ones seeking conflict, so that when escalation takes place, they can blame it on, say, Russia in this case, or these talks with Iran, they'll blame it on Iran. They're not interested in peace with Iran. Who believes that? I don't believe that for a moment. But they're doing this for perception management to make it appear as if they want diplomacy. And when diplomacy fails, and you can see that this from a mile away, they're setting it up to say, and Secretary Rubio even said, "Oh, we're trying everything possible to end this war. Everyone's just being impossible, and we'll just wash our hands of it." It's America's war on Russia being fought through Ukraine. It's America's war. They can end it anytime that they want to. All of this theater, all of this delaying, all of this theatrics between the U.S. and Europe, which is completely politically captured by the U.S. to do. There's one thing I might disagree with, are people who say that Europe and Ukraine are trying to sabotage America's peace deal. There is no peace deal. They're doing exactly what Secretary Hegseth told them to do back in February. They told them, get your troops ready. You're going into Ukraine. You're the next one online into the wood chipper, our proxy war with Russia. So that's what they're doing. And so that's what they're doing. They know Russia's going to reject it. They've set the stage, hopefully, to convince more people than not that it's Russia's fault. They'll say, look, we made such a great deal. We gave them everything they wanted. We said, no, NATO. Nobody who's informed believes that they will stick to that agreement. We're letting them keep all of the territory. It's a deal too good for them to reject unless they are just bent on war. And that's how they're going to frame it. That is how they are framing it. And when the negotiations predictably collapse because they're disingenuous, the U.S. will say, it's Russia's fault, Europe go in, and if Russia attacks Europe, it's because they're bloodthirsty warmongers, and we'll do whatever we have to do to support Europe, who's going to get fed into the wood chipper as we work on Iran and China.
That's called a nuclear war, if the U.S.
attacks
Europe in this. And I love the wood chipper term, because that's what it is. They're going to die. They're going to get shot in the face and die. Ukraine had the largest military in Europe and lost, with U.S. direction literally picking out battle plans, strategy, all of this stuff, and they lost. And so if the Europeans are going to be stupid enough to throw their citizens to get shot and killed by Russians, okay, fair enough. Good luck with that, right? I mean, it's so absurd. And I would tell you, the U.S. has zero credibility in this, meaning if you're right, there is a lack of self-perception that is mind-blowing. Do they honestly believe that the other countries around the world are going to look at this and think, well, the U.S. is an honest actor who believes in love and light, and they're just seeking peace? They're not. I don't think they are. Maybe American citizens, maybe European citizens, but they're brainwashed. Russia doesn't care. Look, man, I am at the point where I think they are beyond caring what the West thinks. From their point of view, these are our territories, we're going to take them. That's it. If you are going to put your military in, your military is going to die, and we're going to keep taking the territories. And we may, if necessary, go to the border of Poland in order to fill the gaps. There will be no gaps. That is our plan. That is our strategy that has evolved from what started as a limited special military operation. If the U.S. and if Europe doesn't know that, and they are stupid enough to take on a battle-hardened military that's going to swell to like 1 million men that has been killing and dying for 3 years, oh God, they're out of their minds. Like, this plan is insane. And the notion that the U.S. is going to do what? What is the U.S. going to do? Are they going to come in? They're going to send in American troops back into Europe for a larger war? Okay, that's a nuclear war. That's what I'm saying. This plan it's detached from reality. In the sense that Russia is going to accept this. And by the way, Putin does the same thing. He's like, I will look at the plan. I'll see what it does and blah, blah, blah. And then you get Medvedev, his anger coach, who comes out and gives the real point of view of the Kremlin,
Yes.
right? It's like, if Europeans want to die for so-and-so, then God bless them, we'll murder all of them. Like, he's the guy who gives you the honest take, whereas Putin is the polite one. He's the diplomatic one. He's the guy who's, well, I'm always into diplomacy, even if they're not really entirely caring, in this case, about the diplomacy that the West is coming with. That's just astonishing to me. I look, I may even agree with you on this. I don't. You have a darker lens than I think I do on this. I accept the Hegseth thing. Europe is following script, so fair enough. Yeah, it's just wild to me. I just, this is absurd on its face that they would accept this premise, please.
Yes, well, look at what the U.S. convinced Ukraine to do. It's self-destruction. And now they're going to do the exact same thing for the rest of Europe. The U.S. has no intention of getting involved. Secretary Hegseth in February said, we're not going to be involved. There's no Article 5. You're going in there. You're just the next ones. You're our next proxy. And you can almost predict what will happen. I think they will try to do everything short of some kind of nuclear exchange. I mean, if the U.S. is not involved, how does Russia justify carrying out a strike on the United States? But if there's even a nuclear exchange between Europe and Russia, for the United States, they're looking at their empire disappearing forever, irreversibly, and they will do almost anything to gain it back. And they're looking at this in the same frame of mind as they looked at World War II. It is a huge opportunity to have everyone destroy themselves all across Eurasia. We'll be safe and sound. We have 2 oceans between us on either side of our coast. Let them fight in Europe. Let's trigger a war in the Middle East, get Israel, which has nuclear weapons, have them flatten Iran, have everyone kill each other there. And let's trigger a war with China and have Japan, South Korea, and the Philippines all fall on their swords, and the separatists on Taiwan. And then in their mind, on the other side of that conflict, they come out in the best position to reassert global
There's one
dominance,
flaw
which is what this is
in
all
that
about.
logic. And the flaw in that logic is that Putin pointed out early on, we have the capability of hitting you. And we know that you're the inspiration to this, meaning you're not safe on your coast. You may think you are, but you are not. And I can't believe that Russia would get into a nuclear exchange with Europe, not realizing that the US is the motivator behind them doing so. Like, I understand the point, right? It's like, because I've made this point too, that the US is willing to effectively use Europe in the same way to use Ukraine. That if a war breaks out, they would have Europe as being the fall guy for that war and throw them into the mix with us being safe. Agreed. I don't know if Russia would accept that premise. That's the only thing I have with that. Because otherwise, you've effectively allowed the US to remain the last man standing and destroy your country. And they know that the US was the main driver in that war for Ukraine, meaning they know, even if they don't acknowledge it openly, because they'll be stuck with the acknowledgement, they know that Americans have been killing Ukrainians, as killing Russians. They know it. Whatever that number is, 100,000, 200,000, they know. And so would that be the moment where the world ends? Not to mention China is not going to allow, oh God, this would be chaos. Like, China is not going to allow that to take place. And the US can come up. Hegseth, by the way, is also the guy that said China could flatten our carriers in 15 minutes, flat. And he's right. Like this, I don't think they think they're too bright for their own good. And I don't think this plan is going to work out in a way that they think it is. I agree with you that Europe will get put into the wood chipper. That's assuming those governments survive the political turmoil that they are going through now. I don't believe that the US is going to be blissfully away from all of it. I think they also will get hit in the conflict, especially if they're going to get into conflict with China. That's just nuclear war. Like, you can't win a nuclear war, because that was always my premise. You need to do any and everything up to the point of a nuclear war. And if you can be below it, and you can come out on top, you won. If all of us die, all of us die. It doesn't matter. Tell me what I'm wrong with that. Please.
No, I think you're right. I think that's their plan. Their plan is to do everything up to, but not some sort of nuclear exchange. I don't think that they would. But just war game it out in your mind. If Europe were to say, well, Russia's wiping us out, they're actually striking targets in our borders, within our borders, to wipe out our military-industrial base, and we're going to launch nuclear. Maybe tactical nuclear weapons or something like that against Russian positions, maybe not Moscow, but something like that. How do you go from that to Russia launching nukes and wiping out the United States? I get in theory what you mean, and obviously the U.S. is behind all of this, but how does Russia go from that to now we're going to do a full-out nuclear exchange with the U.S. who will return fire?
A tactical nuke is just a nuke. I don't make a distinction between a tactical nuke and a nuclear weapon. And the moment that you start using nukes, you started using nukes, right? I guess the way I frame it in my mind in this is ultimately Russia, the U.S. From my point of view, there's knowledge, like meta knowledge, that goes beyond the chum that goes into the conversation of newspapers and whatnot. In that meta-knowledge, they know as a flat fact that the U.S. was involved in this plan to kill Russians. And again, Putin has already pointed out, you're not safe. Like this notion that you're going to be blissfully away, you're not safe. We can hit you. And I don't think he's saying that rhetorically. I think he's saying that in a true sense of the word, if you keep pushing, which would be the U.S. pushing in this case, I think this would be chaos. I think this would be like, especially if the U.S. takes this position where they're going after China and Russia and China are working in tandem with one another. Okay, then right off the bat, you effectively have a world war again. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, who the hell knows where Turkey is on one side. And every target is fair game. That's the way I see it in my mind. When I look at this and think to myself, how does this fall out? I don't believe for a moment that China would allow Russia to fall. I just don't. And if Hegseth is stuck, please.
No, I was just going to say, but let's just imagine that it doesn't come to any sort of nuclear exchange. That's the absolute worst case scenario. Right, and even that brings up it brings up a debate whether or not there would be an exchange between Russia, China, and the U.S. If you read the policy papers, they really do believe they can fight a war with China, a limited war that neither side wants to escalate to nuclear, and we already see them putting other pieces together to this puzzle. So they want to start a conflict with China, to then just like they did with Russia, to then justify even more drastic measures against China to isolate China, and we see them taking over the Panama Canal. Right. Talking about annexing Greenland. They have a global spanning navy. They will attempt to blockade, interdict, seize Chinese maritime shipping worldwide beyond the reach of China's navy. China's navy is incapable of spanning the globe and countering this. So they know that at this moment, they have that advantage. 10, 20 years from now, they will not have this advantage. This is why everything is accelerating. And we're seeing things that are so insane, like these tariffs. These you don't do tariffs like this when you're trying to reindustrialize your economy. That's the pretext you sell it to the public with. You do this when you're preparing for war. So this is what they're doing. This is what their policy papers have been talking about. This is what each administration has been preparing for incrementally over since the turn of this 21st century, actually.
The tariff thing, this is, I guess, what I mean by the U.S. media. Like, it is so outlandish. And the only thing they think is Trump is incompetent. And because Trump is incompetent, he's just doing tariffs like this. As opposed to Trump is walling off America. He's, he's trying to, he sees what happened to Europe, right? The deindustrialization of Europe at the point where the war started with Russia. He's like, okay, we don't want that to happen to us. We need to wall ourselves off. And his way of doing it is keep Chinese goods out of the U.S. We need to suffer now for a war later. He's going to be dead in 3 years, though. I mean, look, from my point of view, there are multiple versions of this take. It could be a darker version. It could be a version not as dark. I don't know which one it is. On Iran, I tend to view the darker version of this just because there's been a through line of trying to destroy the Middle East. I agree with you that if you think back to the Second World War, it wasn't that America was exceptional, it was that Europe had been destroyed. China had been destroyed, Japan had been destroyed. So we were the only game in town in regards to products. Would it shock me, a person who says life doesn't matter when you're gaming out these kind of strategic choices, if they decide to use Europe as cannon fodder with the idea of creating a similar pretext, destroy the Middle East, destroy Europe?
And
No,
Asia.
yeah, and Asia. But see, I'm more skeptical of the China thing. The reason I'm more skeptical of China, I think that's going to be harder to do than they may think it is in the policy papers. You could be right. It could fall exactly the way you says it is. You say it is, but reality is different, and reality doesn't necessarily play by people's thoughts in regards to this is how this turns out. It's what they try, and then reality hits. Right? I don't know, man. It's dark, to put it mildly, and
Well,
that does. No, please.
Just to add to that, though, we have to all keep in mind, and I think this is part of what you're trying to say, is that Russia and China are aware of this. They know this. You can look at Russian and Chinese restraint. They know it's a trap. Iranian restraint. I always see people online, people who are well-meaning but ill-informed and don't really understand how these things work, complaining about why doesn't Iran just wipe Israel off the map? Why don't they just, because it's a trap. That they're trying to spring this trap. They're trying to wipe out Eurasia so that the U.S. is, like you said, the only game in town. They know this, and they are preparing for it. They are reacting to it with this in mind. I think you're right as well. I think it will be very hard to deliver this knockout blow they imagine they can deliver to China. China is, if you ever go there, it's just so huge. It's so vast. There's a population larger than the G7 combined, hardworking people, increasingly well-educated people, a huge industrial base. How do you destroy all of that? How do you do that? And we watched with COVID, we watched what was, whether it was by coincidence or by design, almost like a dry run. What happens when you turn everything upside down? Who comes out on the other side stronger? China did. So now you're going to do this again with actual warfare. Who's going to come out on top again?
The industrial base of China is ungodly. Like, I have never seen anything like it. Like, China by itself can basically supply the world with everything that it needs. Like, it is astonishingly big. I agree with you on that. And I also agree with you, in 20 years, the horse is out the barn.
Yes.
And it may be out the barn now. Like, yeah, they may not have the ships and everything else, but with an industrial capacity where they're building this stuff so fast, look, that is a dark vision that could totally be right. Like, when, what is it? Mika's dad, I'm missing the name, what is it, Zabrishnu or whatever his name is. When he's making these plans for...
Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Yeah, it's something like that. The name always screws with me. When he's making these war plans to try to get Russia bogged down in Afghanistan, he doesn't care about the people of Afghanistan. He doesn't care that they're going to get killed. He doesn't care about the Russians that are going to get killed. It's just, we need to bog them down into Vietnam. That's it. That's all. That's the mechanics, right? Human life doesn't matter in these plans. It's just amazing to me. It's dark because otherwise we're stuck with Donald Trump is radically incompetent on tariffs. He knows nothing about monetary policy, which he probably doesn't. The U.S. is taking a massive hit for a policy that makes no sense in the real world. He is just stuck with William McKinley's book, and he's just running the script for William McKinley's book. Like, that's what we're stuck with. If not, there's a larger objective at work.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with that. I mean, the thing is, presidents are slightly different, but my thing is always, there seems to be a through line. Like, this is the Putin thing, right? Where he's like, a man shows up in a black suit, opens a suitcase and says, this is what you need to do. This is why you need to do it or else. And they follow script just all the way through. And let's be honest, the U.S. has this thing in its mind about primacy. We must remain on top at all costs, because if not, we are going to be subjugated by the Chinese and the other people of the world. Like this is in our minds, right? And so if that is in your mind when you are operating in the world itself, okay, you may do a Trans-Pacific Partnership where you try to pivot to China. They just keep getting bogged down in the Middle East. Like they just can't get out of their own way to actually make that pivot to the Pacific. It's just fascinating to me.
And there's a lot of factors, and I've listened to other guests that have appeared on your show.
Yeah.
And they have.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, but they've laid out very well why the tariffs at face value make absolutely no sense, and they're absolutely correct. But what if it isn't for all of these reasons? What if it is to prepare for this conflict? And it starts to make a lot of sense. And you're talking about how Trump is incompetent. He doesn't know anything about anything. You can just tell when he talks. He has no idea what he's just repeating what people have told him. That's why I implore people to please dig into the policy papers. Project 2025, which was published in 2023, has almost line by line everything the Biden administration before it and now the Trump administration in office today are implementing, including getting rid of the Department of Education, consolidating control over all these regime change tools under the State Department directly, and tariffs. Clobbering the whole planet over the head with these tariffs to not to reindustrialize, to maintain American dominance. And literally the first sentence in the chapter on trade and tariffs talks all about how we need to maintain American dominance. So that is what they're doing.
But see, right there, this is not maintaining American dominance. This damages America. It damages our industries. People are getting fired. The amount of money, like we're going through stagflation, hell, if not a Great Depression. That article that's coming out in the Wall Street Journal, where they're effectively saying, look, this is the worst market crash since the Great Depression. That's an astonishing article. That's going to be on the front page. This is not to our benefit. I guess this is kind of my point about reality coming into play. I don't know if that policy paper projected, okay, well, China is going to get involved in a trade war with the U.S. when Trump stumbles into this. Trump is not going to be able to extricate himself out of it. And we're going to be at the worst end of it, where he is going to have to lump together with other countries and effectively beg them to work with him to go after China. Like that horse is... Let me ask you this. I've always made this argument that they're a canary in the coal mines in regards to world-changing events. Ukraine losing in Russia, from my point of view, is a world-changing event in regards to a military organization that was set up for 50 years. That sole purpose was to take down the Soviet Union. And it falls apart. Soviet Union falls apart. The beating heart of it, Russia, by itself, beats the organization. That's an astonishing thing to me. And I don't think we've kind of accommodated what that means. We just moved on. And he moves on to, I'm insecure and I need to flex economic might. Because it could be one of two things, right? It could be Trump being Trump, believing America can do this. Reading, like you said, the paper from line one, tariffs is the way to dominate the world and to get everybody in line. And the world doesn't necessarily fall in line. Instead, what you get is China going around from country to country, organizing the global south, trying to get Europe to lump in order to effectively punish the U.S. for it. Now, will the U.S. be able to keep Europe in line on this? I don't know. Will Europe feel some kind of way that Trump is damaging their economy? And this is after the Ukraine war has already damaged their economy with money fleeing out of Europe. I don't know. Like, these are unknowns to me. But that policy paper, or at the very least that first line, I don't think it didn't take that into consideration. It assumed that America would be able to dominate the world with this. And America is not able to dominate the world with this. Our markets are falling apart. The dollar is utterly collapsing. The stock market is losing its mind. That is not taking place in China. That is not taking place in Russia.
I agree.
Wrong. I want you to tell me from wrong.
I agree. America as a nation is being trampled by this. When in your intro, you were talking about how the billionaires, they're the ones that are going to be okay through all of this. This is, to them, this is hard medicine that's going to make them sick. It begins killing their body, but they believe that they can kill the disease first before they themselves die. This is the mentality that they have here.
It's like chemotherapy.
Exactly. And Will they get Europe to go along? Of course. They're doing a high dive headfirst into the wood chipper, a proxy war with Ukraine. Of course, they're going to go along with the tariffs and war with China and anything else. This is what's dangerous. Again, many excellent guests point out that none of these policies serve the best interests of these countries the U.S. is coercing to adopt them. The problem is political capture. When you politically capture a country and you put a client regime in place, they answer to Washington at the cost of that particular country. We have just watched this process run almost full course in Ukraine, destroying the country almost brick by brick. And look at what it has already done to Europe before even becoming more directly involved in the proxy war. It's already cost Europe so much, and they're ready for more. Japan, South Korea, even though there's some pushback, they're still hurting themselves. They are still in terminal decline because of this political capture and the policies they are coerced into adopting. The Philippines is rushing to become, Asia's Ukraine, which is insane. It's completely insane. I've been to the Philippines. The people are so nice, so hardworking, great people. But they have a huge population, much bigger than here in Thailand. Their GDP is much smaller. And this is a product of being politically captured and used for Washington, not for the Philippines. And will they go, despite it being completely against their best interests, into some sort of confrontation or even conflict with China? Yes, that is the danger of political capture. That's why over the years I've talked so much about the National Endowment for Democracy, the way they insidiously, incrementally, over many years, work their way into a country, infect the media, the education system. So even when you have a political party in power that does not answer to Washington, they're still able to persuade the public to go along with Washington's objectives against their own best interest. They can convince the public to go against their own best interest. So the multipolar world is. No, go ahead.
Please continue. No. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
One last thing. The multipolar world is working on ways to defend itself from this war the U.S. is waging against it. That is what all of this is. From Ukraine to Iran to China, the tariffs, everything. It is a war on multipolarism. Yeah. They are coming up with collective ways to defend themselves. That the one factor that I think is missing is fully exposing and confronting the soft power the United States uses to, again, insidiously infect and politically capture a targeted nation. That is the biggest danger multipolarism faces today, I believe.
No, I think you have a good point. Like, when they got rid of Sputnik and RT in Europe, just bam, just gone. And Joe Biden did this kind of end run in order to get rid of Sputnik here in the States. And it's like, these are tiny outlets. What are you doing? Like, yes. Like my listeners, we have 634 people here. Sputnik might have gotten 200. Right? Like live viewers, they might have gotten 200. I don't know how many on the radio thing. But the U.S. was in this mindset of we need to remove them. They're affecting Africa. They're stopping people from joining into the Ukraine war. That's like, dude, you guys are lunatics. This tiny outlet is not doing that. Maybe in Europe, because Germany had a much higher proportion of it and you had other countries, not here in the States. And yet, it was still too much, which gets across your point. This infectious nature of media, how it infects a person's mindset. It makes it think like, this is the news. This is reality. It conforms your reality to whatever they're reporting. And if you don't know that National Endowment for Democracy or USAID is covering like 70 or 80% of the media in Ukraine, or X amount of the media in Europe, or X amount of the media in these other countries, then you're effectively being subversively infected with a thought virus. So yes. 1,000% agree with you on this. Like, it is insidious in the way that stuff works, but they do it because it does work. It's that. Yes. It's just fascinating. Like, it is so dark. And I know, look, I am open to multiple viewpoints on this stuff because as a flat fact, I don't know, nor do I know how reality affects a plane. When Germany was doing one of their, I forget the maneuver that they were effectively doing. And one of the most important components of the German military in the Second World War had to do something. They had whatever this, they had to do it. They had to do it, and they got bogged down in the mud and weren't able to progress to the next step of the plan. Okay, nobody plans for that. That is a weird thing, right? I chase a cab as it pulls away, fall off of part of a cliff, spraining my ankle, like spraining my arm, gets hit in the head, cell phone breaks. There's no plan for that. You are literally putting to a plan. I'm going to save money. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to save on rent. And then that happens, $600, $700, up in smoke. You don't plan for that. Like, meaning, I accept that this may be war planners. I also accept that other countries, on some level, are smart enough to know, okay, these guys are trying to defend the primacy, regardless of what they say, regardless of what they do. They're trying to defend primacy. When Putin says, we believe Trump, we trust him. No, they don't.
No, they don't.
No, they don't.
I don't think that they do.
No, but it's it's what you said, right? It's like diplomacy. People want to look civil. Like, one of the things I've always asked is, why pretend that you are a nice person when you're not? Like, meaning, if U.S. policy, like this goes back to like Ronald Reagan, right? When the Gipper comes out for the Iran-Contra affair. And the public was shocked when Reagan pointed out, yeah, we were selling weapons to Iran in order to fund Contras to go after the Sandinista governments. We were paying for kill squads. They were killing people left and right. I'm the Gipper. I didn't know anything about it. So, there's that. And the public was like, oh my God, we're America. We're not supposed to be doing that. And it's like, you stupid idiots. We've been doing it the entire time.
For like a century already. Yes.
Yeah. It's a fascinating thing. But part of the reason you do that is because you don't want to be seen as that guy. Like, there is political capital in not being seen in doing the nasty stuff that you're actually doing. And you push this stuff away into the dark, and you take on this thing of, I'm wearing a suit, I have this awesome thing, I'm a fantastic person. It helps you politically, which is the reason why they effectively do it. They don't do this stuff shallow. Now, I'm fascinated by this stuff. And I think, look, on some level, man, I think you're right. It's too comically ridiculous for God. Weirdly enough, I almost hope you're right. Because otherwise, it's so stupid. Like, it is so deeply incompetent.
Yes.
All of this. Like, if indeed it is what it is, I just have to believe there's a larger rationale for it that is not being disclosed to the public, which is reason why, that was my first question. Dude, what the hell is going on? What's the world? Why is he doing this? This makes no sense. He knows they're going to turn that deal down. He knows it. As a flat fact, he has to know.
You know what's scarier is that I absolutely agree with you about political capital. The thing that is scary is that under the Trump administration, the way they're using his ability to manipulate the public, you can see part of his support base is absolutely on board with America just being a global thug. Hey, let's take Greenland, let's take Canada. People hear this and they don't immediately think he is insane and he has to be stopped. If that's not the first thing that you think, you've been hooked. And they have convinced you to go along with something that should otherwise destroy political capital. The other thing that is scary is I have people saying, Brian, you're totally wrong. Trump got rid of NED, got rid of it. And all of these other things, Voice of America, Radio Free Asia. I see the political party that the U.S. backs walking up and down my street for local elections. Like right now, I'm like, people are telling me this and I'm saying, I'm looking out my window literally and I see them in front of my house. So no.
Correct me if I'm wrong. They put it in the State Department, right?
Yeah, yes, it's all consolidated under the State Department, and this is what makes it scary. It's still there, but now it has been covered up. People are convinced that it's gone, but it has been streamlined, sharpened, consolidated, and it is still being wielded. I mean, we were just talking about how it's one of their most effective tools. Why would they ever voluntarily give it up? They wouldn't.
So I have mixed feelings about that because, truth be told, Trump is losing political capital also. Like, if you are Obama, you glow, right, in the sunlight. Like, Obama has a way of just glowing in the sunlight.
No matter what he says.
It's just who he is, right?
We kill some folks.
Right.
Right.
Right. We torture some folks. But even that, we tortured some folks. He's, in a folksy way, talking about breaking people. And the media accepts it. Trump It's grotesque in the way that he presents. Like meaning, I had on what is his name, Joe. Oh, it'll come to me in a moment. But he was talking about like Trump is the best face of a dying empire. Like he's the best villain for this empire. I agree with you about the political capital thing, but I kind of don't. And let me explain why, especially as it pertains to Trump. If you're a liberal, you're okay with Obama murdering an American citizen. You're not outraged by it. If you're a liberal, you would be perfectly okay with what's taking place in Gaza if Joe Biden is your president. Perfectly okay. You would even keep people off the stage talking about it with like 70% of your party being against you on it. You'll run with it and you'll defend it. And if Kamala Harris got elected, she would do the exact same thing that Trump is doing, maybe minus the poor republic. I can go down the list of this stuff. You're okay in starting a war that gets hundreds of thousands of people killed, and you would back that war, and you would continue to back that war. Meaning that grotesque behavior and that slavish, cultish devotion to a political institution, it's not just MAGA. It's not. Maybe Joe Biden or Obama would never say, we're going to take Greenland, because, Obama does the stuff in the shadows. But Trump loses political capital externally. Like, that's the issue, right? When we're talking about other political figures who are doing this stuff in the dark while trying to maintain this air of, I'm a peacemaker, I believe in democracy, I believe in so-and-so, that's not Trump. He's not that guy. Like, he's the guy that decided to have a trade war with the world. He's the guy that sent Vance out to wag the finger at Europe, to browbeat them and basically call them vassals. Vance literally said in an interview, said, I don't care what Europe thinks. I don't care. We don't care. We're taking Greenland. Okay, that's not political capital in the way that we're talking about it with typical politicians who under no circumstances will want to be seen in that light. Trump doesn't seem to care. And so his base, yes, they would have slavish devotion to him. I agree with you. The notion that, but see, from my point of view, it's not about fairness. It's not about morality. It's not about ethics. It's about power. Can you do something or not? That's it. And supporters will lump in with you on that if you can do it in the way that they're lumping in with Trump, or in the way that they would lump in and say Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. Every time I see him, he's on it. He has hard sex with his wife. He's a great guy. And he's like, okay, dude, come on. Are you serious right now? It's like we saw the debate. What are you talking about? He doesn't have that. He's like, Europe hates him like with a burning passion. I would imagine the other nations also at this point, especially with the tariff war, hate his guts. He loses capital for America in this notion of freedom and justice for whatever that we have left from the standpoint of the genocide. What is your take on that? Is it that, okay, well, they don't care in a sense, meaning this plan is going forward and we need somebody who acts like this in order to push this through, because you can't really do this with an Obama. Obama would never do this, right? That's not his shtick. He would do a TPP where he would sell out the sovereignty of the United States. But to be as ogreish to say, I'm taking Greenland, he's not that guy. Give me your take on that, because that does break the model on some level, unless that is, he's the guy that you just need that guy to do that.
Exactly. He's the villain. He's the guy the United States, the deep state, needs to do these things. They have it in decade-spanning policy papers that they were going to do all of this. Yeah. They need a villain to do this. And as he's doing it, America can say, well, this isn't us. This is Trump. Trump is doing this. And when he's gone after 4 years, we flush all of these bad memories down the toilet with his administration, which is what they did this is what Trump did with Biden. He helped prepare and provoke the war in Ukraine, but now he's dumping it all on Biden and flushing it down the toilet when he was going out of office. So this is the beauty of, the U.S. is not a democracy. There are no two parties. There is the deep state, and it runs this theater specifically so that every 4 years they get to reset, start with a clean sheet of paper, maintain credibility worldwide, because they'll just say, that wasn't America, that was Trump. And Trump is now out of office, and now we have whoever the next showman is. And it works, because I see here in Thailand the people here, their perception of America more or less stays the same. Whatever the propaganda is pushing, that is what they're buying. Which is why I always go back to countries need to protect their information space, because that propaganda, not the reality of what is actually taking place in the US and around the world because of the US, it's the propaganda that is shaping minds, not their actual actions. That's the unfortunate part of this system they have set up because of how effective it is in doing this.
Brian, you are fascinating. And I deeply appreciate this conversation. I love conversations like this. I hope the audience enjoys conversation like this, because I love it. I have two minds of this. I know sometimes when events happen that they seem imposed, like there seems purpose in events that may take place. It's not always purpose. And so I do have two minds of this in regards to, okay, it could be this worst version of things that is terrifying, because I think we're all going to die. Or it could be this other version where these people are, in some level, idiots, but at the same token, trying to do some of this stuff. Like, meaning, I see it in the spectrum. But I can't entirely quibble with the framing of it, if that makes sense. It fits together as a cohesive narrative. Brian, man, I always love these conversations. You're welcome here anytime. Thank you for this, man. I really appreciate it. And just for the audience to know, Brian, there it is, Brian Berletic. And for whatever particular reason, my system is freezing on me. There we go. Brian Berletic. He is host of the New Atlas. Check that show out. That show is fantastic. He gives massively great breakdowns. Bangkok-based geopolitical researcher and writer, former Marine. Have a good one, man. You be safe, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
All righty. Oh, I enjoyed that conversation.